Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Janelle. I'm a wife and a mother of one, and on here I do all things cashless budgeting. Today we're going to be talking about how we can improve our financial health. Did you know that as of February 2025, 65% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck? That's crazy. And paycheck to paycheck is defined from the Bank of America Institute as a household using 95+% of their income to pay for necessities. That is a lot, y'all. That is a lot. That took me for a loop, y'all. So today in this video, we're going to talk about 3 different things that can help us to improve our financial health and our journey to financial freedom. We are going to be talking about creating a budget, living below our means, and building an emergency fund. So let's talk about it. First, we're talking about creating a budget. There's so many different ways to create a budget, so many different tools, spreadsheets, and things you can do. Different setups such as the 50-30-20 rule. You can do a zero-based budget. You can do a cashless envelope system or a cash envelope system. You can use spreadsheets. You can do paper. You can do worksheets, all of the different things. But creating a budget is so important. And you don't have to look at it as being very restrictive, but more so just giving you a template of what all income you're receiving and where it's actually going. So each month it's really good to just look at a calendar, write down all of your bills and when they are due, and then take your income and divvy up your income for all of your bills and just see where all of your bills and your money is going to. Another good thing that I think is very important when creating a budget that not everyone does, but I think it's probably the most important out of all of the different budgeting things that we do on a regular basis, is tracking your expenses. You really don't know where your money is going until you track your expenses. I track my expenses daily, but I show you guys on a weekly basis where all of my money is going. And that really does help me to gauge what I am doing on a weekly basis. Am I spending too much money in groceries? Am I spending too much money on eating out? Where do I need to curb myself in order to reach my financial goals? Or where do I need to put more money to be able to stay within budget because I keep going out of budget? I think that is just so important because sometimes it's not really our actual standard budget when it comes to our bills that we can't control. It's really our variable expenses, and those are the things that we tend to go wild on, like buying groceries and gas. And yes, those things are very expensive, but we have a lot of control over how much we want to spend, and that just requires us to be a little bit more intentional in the season that we are currently in. So I think that's one of the first things that we can do if we're trying to improve our financial health, is creating a budget, is making a plan and saying, this is what I would like to do, and let's see if we can actually accomplish that for the month. All right. Number 2 is going to be living below our means. And I know this is a hard one because I struggle with this sometimes, but I am improving every month to get to that. And it really just depends on where you are in your financial journey. But I think some of the things that we can do when we talk about living within our means is setting realistic goals. Sometimes I fall into that category where I don't actually set realistic goals for me or my family. If you know you only bring in $25,000 for the year, how are you going to save $50,000? Let's just be realistic. It is maybe a goal. We have faith that maybe we can get there, but it's not really a realistic goal. And so I think it's just setting realistic expectations for what you want, knowing what your goals are for you and your family and what you guys are trying to accomplish short term and long term. And putting that into perspective whenever you are talking about living within your means. A lot of the times we get into lifestyle creep as as we get promotions or earn more money, we start to do a little bit more. And then because of that, we spend more than we need to. And just depending on who you are, maybe it's you're watching other people do things that you think you should do too. I used to fall into that category. I would see other people's homes and I would say that, oh, I need all of these things in my house and I need to set up my house like this. And let's just be honest, you guys, no one's coming into my house. So I want to make my house comfortable for me and my family and not for a show for other people. I don't have things on my wall for the most part. And I used to just think like, oh, my house is not a house until it looks like this person's house or that person's house. And it could be other small things like thinking that you have to go on vacation all the time or that you have to do all of these things to create memories with your family or friends or things like that. And I think sometimes that falls into living within your means. For us, last year, we have a 3-year-old daughter. And instead of always thinking that maybe we have to go drive to the park, we bought the park to our backyard. So we literally have a little slide outside. We have balls and we bought a little inflatable pool. And that is something that we could literally, if we wanted to, use every single day and get our money's worth, build memories and experiences, and still live within our means. Because maybe living within our means that we can't afford to keep driving to the park every day or paying to go to the water park every weekend or things like that. Sometimes it's about building up with you what you already have and using that to live within your means. Maybe learning how to sew up clothes so that if your t-shirt rips or things like that, you can take care of it yourself instead of having to go out and purchase new things. I think that is sometimes living within your means, is just sometimes just not spending just because we want to spend when we need to spend, and find value in the things that we already have. I actually did a video maybe like a month ago about quality over quantity, and I think that is a great video to go and definitely check out, because that's a part of living within your means. Buying quality items that last a lot longer instead of quantity, because over time you tend to live outside of your means because you're constantly buying things that if you had just purchased the right thing or a more quality item the first time around, it would have saved you money. But also just buying the things that you need. Like, do you really need to maybe have 3 or 4 different like bed sets? Or do we only need 1 or 2 really good quality ones that we can use? Once again, like I said, in my house, no one's coming to my house really. So I don't need to do all of the things. Or maybe buying, maybe 2 or 3 sets of sheets, but then having one big like duvet cover that you use. But just really finding things that work for you that you can reuse and, make it work for more than one thing. I think sometimes we talk about living within our means and just, not spending, but also the things that we have and making those things work and appreciating them and making them last longer than they normally would have. Okay, so those are the things that I think can really help us to live within our means. And another thing that I thought of, you guys, is also making sure that we're not doing things that are going to strain our budget. So, if you're trying to live within your means, maybe you're exercising and you're losing weight. Instead of trying to buy clothes every month to keep up with your weight loss, maybe you tell yourself, hey, every time I lose 20 pounds, then I will then go and buy, new clothes or new shoes or things like that, instead of straining your budget and maybe spending outside of what you have to keep up with the fact that you're losing weight. Is just a nice quick little example of that. But just making sure that whenever you're setting your goals for your budget that you've created, that you're being realistic about it and that you're not straining your budget to keep up with all of the different things. Give yourself maybe 1 to 2 important goals and work on that and complete it before going on to another goal or achievement that you would like to accomplish. And then lastly, you guys, is a building an emergency fund. I know there is so much to talk about when it comes to an emergency fund. And if I could tell myself maybe a couple of years ago, which I kind of did and then I didn't, is I think when you are a beginner budget, sometimes you can get a little caught up in all of the sinking funds, purpose funds, saving funds, whatever you would like to call them. Lifesaver funds. I'm just thinking of all the things that I've heard people call them. We can get caught up a little bit. And I think as a beginner budgeter, the best thing to do is I would say have only two savings account. One is your emergency fund for actual emergencies. And that could be any emergency, a loss of a job, your car breaks down, you have to go to the hospital, the doctor. If you own a home, your roof flies off. You have that money for that. And then the other fund is for everything else. And I say that because we think of everything else like buying clothes. If you have children go through clothes and shoes like it's nothing. There's school activities, Christmas, holidays, entertainment, fun, all of that stuff. Just save that. And what it really does is it really helps to have those two specific funds, one separate, but two, you don't have to divvy your money up too much. So especially if you're maybe a low income earner or you have a lot of debt or something like that where you don't have a lot of money to save, if you have $100, you can just say, $50 to my emergency fund, $50 to that second savings fund, and boom, you're good. And you're just constantly saving. And whenever you have an emergency, then there's some money in the emergency account. And if you have a non-emergency, then you could just use that other account instead of maybe having 12, 16, 100 different accounts where you're putting $1 here, $1 there. And then maybe in 6 months, you really haven't accomplished much. And now you want to go buy clothes, but you only have $6 in that clothing fund, although you may have $500 saved. And now you're throwing yourself into a tizzy because you really don't have the money, but then you do have the money, and then it causes a whole bunch of chaos. So I think that it is important to just have two accounts, an emergency account and a non-emergency account when you're starting out. I think that just works out much better. It's easier and it doesn't cause too much chaos. And then you build on that. Now, talking about an emergency fund, everyone's emergency fund is going to be different. I know Dave Ramsey talks about $1,000 emergency fund. Many people don't believe that that is something that they can do. Maybe they want to have a $2,000 or $3,000 starter emergency fund before they start paying off their debts or doing other things. I think that is just going to depend on your family size, whether your job is a little bit more stable or if you work off commissions or things like that. And then you give yourself that number that you think is important for you and your family. And then you save that and then you go on from there. But I think that having an emergency fund is so important because let's just say that you did save up $1,000 and you get into a car issue that costs $1,200. It's so much easier to cover a $200 expense than a $1,200 expense. Always and forever, it will always be easy. And so I think that you can build an emergency fund that way. And maybe you don't have a second account and you just have one savings account that you don't want to call an emergency fund, but you just go ahead and save money in there every single month until you are comfortable with the money that's in there, then that is perfect. But I think that everyone should have an account where they're saving money in there every single month for an emergency, because we're all going to have an emergency. Something's going to come up, whether it's small or big, that we may not have budgeted. And that also takes the strain off of our paychecks that we're receiving, because your paycheck is there for your regular expenses that you get on a month monthly basis, and you may not have $1,500 to cover out of a paycheck for an emergency. But then you remember, I've been putting money away for a rainy day. And so now you have some money to help with that, which releases or relieves a lot of stress that comes around with, you know, an emergency and what that emergency is and the anxiety and things like that. So y'all, those are my quick 3 little tips that I have for helping to improve your financial health. Your financial health. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Comment down in the comments below if you guys have other great tips that have helped you in this rat race of not living paycheck to paycheck, pursuing financial freedom, improving your financial health. Mentally, physically, and financially. I would love to hear them in the comments down below. Don't forget to check out my playlist with a lot of my other budgeting videos and how we are paying down $32K worth of household debt that I'm hoping to pay off in maybe just about a year. So we'll see how that goes. Once again, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.